One of the things I loved as well, like you talk a lot in the book about kind of all of the kind of visual and production standards that went into WrestleMania 3, and it really was a game changer, wasn't it? Because obviously WrestleMania 1 was so significant and so stacked with talent, but the company hadn't yet worked out how to present in a bigger way. So it still looked like an MSG house show, despite
Yes, it did.
WrestleMania 2 had gone a lot further. They'd understood about light in the audience, so showing the scale of the thing. So it was much more impressive. But obviously, the ambition of doing three shows in three different cities was also quite fraught with problems. But WrestleMania 3 is like when they nail the formula, and I feel like from WrestleMania 3, there's no going back, really, is there? Like I know the WWF goes through some difficult times in the 90s and struggles to draw bigger houses, but once you've seen wrestling presented on such a huge stage, it's hard to ever forget that, isn't it?
Yes, and it's not like there was WrestleMania 3 and then it was in stadiums forevermore. That didn't occur until, I'd have to look sometime in the 2000s.
Mm. I guess it
There
did.
was a
I guess it did. Big, the ones that jump out at me. So they did WrestleMania 6 in the Sky Dome. So that was probably about six.
yes, I was at that one. They did something in Seattle,
Yeah,
but in between they still went back to arenas for
yeah.
wrestling.
And I always felt WrestleMania was more, at its most special when it was in bigger places. So like WrestleMania 8 was the first WrestleMania I ever saw, and then I worked
Right.
my way backwards. So that was obviously the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis, which is
Right, and that
very,
was
very
during
similar to
a down period in the States.
yeah, but it looked incredible, and so
Yeah,
they still have that ability. But WrestleMania for me is obviously always tiny ring in a giant sea of people.
right.
It all really begins with WrestleMania 3, doesn't it? All the
It
spectacle.
does. It does. And even the big screens, as I point out in the book, that was not a given that you would be in a massive venue and there would be these big screens.
Mm,
WWE installed those screens. So even fans who were way on the top could follow the action. And they also advertised that the screens were in color. And I remember going to, different sports events, going to baseball games in the States. And there were screens in some of the stadiums, and many of them were in black and white. And, that was, hey, you have a big screen there. So it's like, that's fine. You can look at the instant replay on the screen. Black and white was sufficient. But Vince McMahon wanted the fans to know they were going to have the full fan experience, and it would be vivid color right before their eyes.
Well, I'll tell you what, Keith, the first 2 years that I watched wrestling was mostly black and white because I had this like little kind of 7 or 8 inch set bequeathed to me, which I could watch for wrestling on in my room. And it was a color set, but it was only color if you kind of hit it and you got it on the
Yeah,
right. And most of the time, unless you hit it enough, it would just be black and white. So I remember I'd watch things like WrestleMania 8 in black and white, and then occasionally you'd hit it and you get the full pop of like
I remember
colors.
I had a television like that too. I also remember I would back in the States we had what was called UHF. It was another frequency of channels, and they weren't always easy to find. They'd be static, and you'd have to adjust the knob. They weren't the same frequency as the main channels. And I used to watch wrestling,
Yeah.
and I remember there was a station on Long Island that for a period had Florida Championship Wrestling.
Mm.
But I couldn't see it in my room. And I would have to carry the TV out into the dining room and watch it in there. And it'd be staticky. And once in a while, like I'd hit the TV and it would be color. And then it would turn black and white 30 seconds
Yeah.
later.
The magic.